Let's have a round of applause for Kelly, please. Kelly Williams. No, it's not often that you get a round of applause for a prayer. It's pretty awesome. Got to be really awesome. So I'm Reverend Greg Dorston. I'm very happy to be here tonight. I'm excited to talk about this topic. But before we get into it, why don't you just say with me, there's only one thing.
There's only one thing.
It may look like more than one thing.
It may look like more than one thing.
It may feel like more than one thing.
It may feel like more than one thing.
But it's only one thing.
But it's only one thing.
Expressing as you.
Expressing as you.
Expressing as me.
Expressing as me.
And everything we see.
And everything we see.
Thank you very much for that. I like to feel that oneness, recognizing and knowing that everything is not only connected, but from the same source. It's a beautiful thing to recognize that I'm connected with you and you're connected with me. And the connecting tissue, if you will, that I'm going to be talking about tonight is love. Ernest Holmes teaches us that Spirit, God, this universal source, the allness of life is really love and law. And the law is the presence of God. The love is the presence of God, and the law is the mechanics of God. So love is what I call a magnet. I mean, if you are exhibiting love, expressing love, then you're magnetized. I mean, you are drawing people to you. You're drawing experiences to you. The presence of God is where everyone wants to be. So this experience of love is a magnetic experience. So I was drawn to this particular topic tonight because I was trying to figure out the best way possible for me to respond to certain things that have been happening in my life and maybe even your life. The first thing that I want to talk about is my response to a brand new grandbaby. I mean, Cora James is amazing. She is absolutely gorgeous. James is her middle name, and that's in honor of me. Isn't that cool? I mean, they decided they were going to honor me with a baby, whether it was a boy or a girl, by naming him or her with the middle name of James. And it's a her. So Cora is the first name, and James is the middle name, and I think that's kind of cool to have a girl named James with a middle name of James. So how do I respond to that? Well, I mean, how can you respond to a beautiful child, beautifully born, the longest little fingers you've ever seen? She's just absolutely gorgeous. She hasn't said my name yet, but I suppose that'll happen down the road. So how do you respond to that? Well, you respond in love, and it's easy to do. But when there are other things that are happening in your life that are a little bit more difficult, that they test your patience or they test your resolve as to whether or not life is just full of suffering or it's a good thing. Like deaths in the family, or deaths in a community like this, or sickness or illness in a community like this. And we've had a lot of that lately. We've had a lot of it. And I'm faced with this idea of response. And so I asked myself, how did I respond to this baby? Well, I responded with love. How do I respond to illness? Well, I respond with love. How do I respond to the coworker who is troublesome, meddlesome, who won't mind his or her own business, who just wants to be drama all day long? How do I respond to that? I got to respond with love. How do I respond to my own illness? I respond with love and do a little introspective search as to what's really going on within me. How do I respond to everything if I want to be a magnet? I respond with love. So in looking at what's going on in the world today with this community, with my family, with my friends, I had a very good friend from college who transitioned last week. And this guy was something else. He was a 6'4" water polo player. We played on the same team together. He went on to win a Watson scholarship and studied in Oxford. He was a scientific genius, an amazing man, indestructible, just indestructible. and he passed away at the age of 64. Amazing. You know, I thought that he was going to live forever. He developed this company called Fibrogen, and they were developing certain medications and drugs for really, really amazing purposes. And I figured that he'd have a backroom project there, you know, so that he could live forever. You know, I really thought that this guy was indestructible, and he passed away. We don't know why. The preliminary cause may be a heart attack, and that's kind of scary. Kind of scary. You know, I had this feeling that there's a fragility to life when I heard the news, because he was just like Wonder Woman is the Tom Neff of, you know, of the female world, and I thought he was like a Wonder Man. So there it is, mortality brought right back home again. You know, I was unable to get out there for his memorial service, but I got a synopsis of it by email today, and I guess it was quite something. About 500 people there from all different walks of life from this man. So, you know, how do I respond to that? Well, there's a tear or two. There's a sense of concern for his family. There's a sense of wonder as to how it could have happened, you know. But I respond in love. I have to respond in love. You know, and what that looks like for me today is that I get a hold of the friends that I didn't get to see at that memorial service. You know, that we talk personally on the telephone, that we talk about things that matter, that we resolve to connect more often, that we resolve to be closer to one another and be supportive, that we resolve to get to know each other's families. I mean, it's been 40 years since we've gone to college together, but we resolve to get to know each other's families. Now that's a big thing. You know, love, if you respond in love, will allow you to make those kinds of resolutions. So it's very cool that we're going to be doing that. And I think it's a great response to a death in the college family. So that follows a couple of other tragic circumstances that have occurred. You know, not to mention the fact that age seems to be touching us in ways that are sometimes kind. I don't know about you, but sometimes I feel it's kind. You know, I kind of like the gray hair. It's not too bad. What do you think? It's all right.
Good.
It's okay. But unkind in other ways. You know, I was listening to a podcast today about Alzheimer's. Not because I'm trying to self-diagnose or anything, you know, but I'm listening to this podcast about Alzheimer's, and it really touched me because the scientist that was talking said, you know, if you can't find your keys, that's not a problem, because I have trouble finding my keys. And I got Jackie in the audience here kind of nodding like, yes, you do have trouble finding your keys. I mean, you set them down somewhere, you don't remember where you set them down. We have major emergencies around where you put your keys. Yeah, you have trouble finding your keys. No, it's not a problem if you can't find your keys, except that you can't find your keys. I mean, it doesn't mean that you're suffering from dementia or Alzheimer's. But once you get a hold of your keys and you don't know what they're for, that's the problem. That's where the problem lies. So I always know what they're for, you know, and I even have a whole ring of keys, like I'm a janitor or something. You know, I got a whole ring of keys for everything. I probably have duplicates on there too. I certainly have keys that I don't know what they're for. I don't know if you guys have that circumstance or not. Your key ring is so old that you haven't gone through them to figure out what these are for. And you go, well, I haven't used that one in about 10 years. I certainly have that going on. So just aging isn't a problem, but when aging brings on some of the problems that seem to come with advanced years, like is happening in this center from time to time, you know, I get concerned. I get in a space where I really want to get together with everybody and respond with love. And what that means sometimes is prayer. I mean, responding directly with prayer. A prayer is a great way to love people. You know, prayer for yourself is a great way to love yourself. Affirmations for you are a great way to love you. And so when these kinds of things are happening within our church family, we move into prayer. And sometimes I do like little meditative chants that I really like too, that sort of seem like a prayer, and I've been working with one, and I'll just do it real slowly here because you might want to join in with me and see what you think about this. It goes like this. What a time to be together. What a time to be in love. What a time to pray. What a time to stay with one another in. Hold on. Told you I've been working on it. It's a work in progress. What a time to be together. What a time to love right now. That was it, right now. What a time to pray. What a glorious day. Step into love and step in and we'll show you how. How about that? I'll do it right this time. What a time to be together. What a time to love right now. What a time to pray. What a glorious day. Step in and we'll show you how. What a time to be together. Join me. What a time to love right now. What a time to pray. What a glorious day. Step in and we'll show you how. Boy, that's an invitation chant, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's an invitation chant. So I've been finding a little bit of time just to sit with that in my mind and just go over it. What a time to be together. What a time to love right now. Now is the time to bring that love, And no matter what's going on in your life, no matter whether or not you're in a situation that you absolutely abhor, something that you do not like at all, you're in a space where you just wish you weren't there. What's the solution? Bring love. What a time to love. What a time to bring that love right now. Because when you do that, you bring the presence of God. And when you bring the presence of God, you're going to bring change in your life. I have no doubt about that. When you call forth that presence of God through love, you're going to change your life. These podcasts I listen to are often very scientific in nature. And one that I was listening to had to do with brain function. It was talking about how if you do something that's different than what you've always done, you're going to start building new pathways within your brain. I don't care how old you are. You're going to start building new pathways, new dendrites, new axons are going to be created. And new pathways are going to be created so that something new can be brought to your life. And the thought that you have can be a reality if your dendrites and your axons are working in the right way and your brain starts to set up a way that this can actually come forth. So it's kind of an interesting way to look at it, because this scientist was saying something similar to what we say. What we say is, thought into form is the creative process. You have that thought and you see it show up. What they're saying is that thought, that something new is necessary, brings about a change in the brain chemistry, the brain function, brings about, new neurons, brings about a new pathway to make it actually happen. So it's sort of the same thing, but in a scientific way as opposed to a metaphysical way, and I love that. I really, really love that. So it's fun to see science validate what it is that we believe, validate what it is that we talk about in class, validate what it is that we read in the Science of Mind textbook. I love that. So you respond to everything with love, whether it's a difficulty, whether it's a death, whether it's emotionally disturbing, whether it is something like the birth of a child. Responding with love brings the presence of God. And the presence of God is always going to make a change in your life. Always. I don't care what religion we're talking about. Whether you're a Buddhist, whether you're a Hindu, whether you're a priest teaching Catholicism, whether you're an evangelical Christian, we all believe that the presence of God is going to bring a change in our lives. And we all somehow believe, no matter what it is, no matter what book, we hang our hat on, no matter what text is our sacred text, we all believe that love is the key. So we bring love. We bring the presence of God. We bring the presence of God, and we bring change. So it's not always easy, though, to bring that kind of love to the table. Sometimes it's really, really tough when you're asked, as in the New Testament in Luke, that you should do something. Two things, in fact. You should love God with all your might, and you should treat your neighbor as yourself, or love your neighbor. I mean, you got yourself a tough one. Loving your neighbor, especially if your neighbor is not doing what you want that neighbor to do. And your neighbor could be anybody. It could be that neighbor next to you in the cubicle that's causing problems for you. It could be the person that just won't shut up when you want them to shut up. You know, it could be a person that is really causing problems within the church or causing problems in your family. You know, the one that doesn't seem to be able to make those family dinners and can't make the outings, and when they do, it's problematic. Because maybe there's a substance involved, maybe there's alcoholism, maybe there's a drug addiction going on. I mean, how do you respond to that? How can you respond with love when they're really, really bothering you? Well, I have this thing that I do, and I don't know whether or not you want to do this too, but the way I respond with love is I just give it a moment. And I call it giving God a gap. You know, give God a gap to step in, you know, to bring that presence of love, a little gap between what's going on and my own emotions. You know, sometimes it looks like counting to 10 before I respond. Sometimes it looks like stepping away from my computer. Sometimes it means that I'm not going to respond to my text messaging. Sometimes I'm not going to respond to my email today. Maybe I'll run it by somebody else. But usually it's all about not responding immediately. It's all about just stepping back and giving God a gap in that situation. You know, in that gap, there's something. There's the presence of God, but there's also something that's unquantifiable. And scientists say they don't know where this comes from, because it certainly doesn't come from any particular part of the brain. They can't identify this. But something called intuition starts to fill that gap. Something called intuition. You know the right thing to do. You know what it is that you should do, the path that you should take, the process that you should utilize. Something new pops into you. If you just give it a gap, you utilize that intuition, you connect with this God source, with this presence, with this beauty, with that which has all answers. Something happens when you do that. Something happens when you allow it. I love that word, allowing. You know, if you allow it to happen, that means you're willing. You know, if you're willing to bring love to every circumstance and allow it to enter your life, allow it to change you, allow it to be the presence that just builds you a brand new experience, then life can be good no matter what is happening around you, can't it? I mean, what a time to be together. What a time to love right now. What a time to love right now. What a time to pray. What a glorious day. Step in and we'll show you how. And you know, I always like to bring the Sanctuary for Spiritual Living into this. You know, when I say step in and we'll show you how, I'm talking about stepping through the door and we'll show you how. Because what we do here is respond with love. You know, we respond with smiles, with laughter, with hugs. We respond with prayer. We always have somebody here to pray. We've had 32 practitioners, for crying out loud. People that are skilled in prayer. 2 ministers. And people who have been around long enough to know exactly what prayer is about. To have great faith in it. To understand it. Its roots, its genesis, what it can do for us. How it can bring about health and prosperity and all the things that we want. So it's an interesting thing, isn't it? How we respond. How we respond. How we respond can bring all of those good things to us. You know, we're not asking for it. Come into my life. This is about how we're responding to things in our life that are happening. how we're responding brings something into our life. And I understand that. I totally understand that, because I know that if we're talking about abundance, we can withhold nothing in our lives. If we really want abundance in our life, we can withhold nothing. If you want abundant love in your life, you can't withhold love. How could you withhold love and expect to have abundant love? Well, I'm going to hold on to this. If you want abundance monetarily, don't hold on to it. Don't secret it away. Don't stick it in a box, or, as the Bible says, bury it in the ground, Oh, because you're such a hard taskmaster, says the Bible. Which is really a metaphor for life being a hard taskmaster, which we know doesn't have to be the case if you respond with love. So if you want an abundance of love, an abundance of anything, withhold nothing. If you want to receive love from somebody in this audience, do not withhold your affection. Do not withhold your conversation. Do not withhold that gaze in their eyes saying, glad to see you. So, this practicing love really is far and wide, isn't it? Anyway, really happy to see you guys tonight. Really happy to have such a full house. I mean, this is amazing. People packed from row to row to row to row. And with that, then I'm going to close it up. The presence of love is here right now. You are it. And that's all I have to say about that.